Coal Mine we were first married. Roselena was a year and a half old when she stayed with my aunt for 3 months. That's really interesting.
It's on now.
Okay.
The story of the Vail Coal Mine disaster. I don't remember what month it was in now.
April.
No, it was before that. Yeah. But anyway, we were flown over from Afton in an airplane to the Vail Coal Mine, and we landed in Grays River. The pilot was, is it dead now, but it was Mr. Bennett from Idaho Falls. He was an old pilot in one of the earlier days. And he flew us over there in an old rattle-trap plane that sounded like it was going to fall to pieces. We just skimmed over the top of the East Rocky Mountains, and he tips this plane up on its side and lets it fall right straight down to the bottom of the canyon. And then he levels it off, and the snow is about 6 feet deep. And we landed in that snow so fast and sunk down so deep that it felt like the plane was going to turn a flip-flop end over end, but it didn't. And he had to tromping the trail, run back and forth in order to get that plane back off the ground on account of the snow being so deep he couldn't get up enough momentum to take off till he gained a good trail tromp. And then we put our webs on and walked 5 miles that night after dark up to the Vail Coal Mine. And it was too late that night to go in the mine, and the mine engineer had to be there, mine inspector, to inspect the mine and test it for gas before we could go in it the next morning to get the bodies out. So after he had tested it, we went in, we found 2 bodies laying on the ground floor of one of the rooms where they'd been mining coal. They were laying face down, and they were singed, their coats were singed, their hair was singed off in the back, and they were laying with their hands up the side of their faces, face down. When we turned them over, their eyes were wide open, just like they were awake. It was a peculiar sight. And the mine foreman, John Baker, he had been blown out of the entrance of the mine and down into the tipple, and it had scalped him just like the Indians had scalped the person. We found him under the snow this next day and found his scalp. And his son, he'd been blown down over the bank and killed. And one other boy from West Virginia, he'd been blown clear down over the bank down by the cabins. And Mrs. Baker, John Baker's wife, had got him into one of the cabins, and he died there on the bed with his leg was twisted off, and he was dead when we got up there too. And Mrs. Baker, she'd never been on skis or anything in her life.
Tell about going to you first.
Oh, well, let me tell about this. And Mrs. Baker, she tried to walk down this 5 miles on these skis, and she'd tried 2 or 3 times, and she went back, didn't think she could make it, and finally she decided that she had to make it. And she fell through the snow and wallered in the snow and then crushed until her legs was all cut up and about frozen, making this 5 miles to down to Young's Ranch to let them know what had happened up there. And there was a little mine horse that we used to use in the mine. Clara and I had worked up there that summer before, and this little mine horse, they used to use him to pull the cars out of the mine, and I guess he was probably just pulled the cars out when this mine had exploded that night. They'd put shots in, and some of the guys came out, and these 2 that we found in the mine, they'd stayed in to see what the shots had done. The shots, the mine inspector said, that sucked out and set the mine afire, and it's hot gas, as he said, probably only lasted for a few seconds, but it's just so hot that it's just like, I guess, a acetylene welder or something turned on you. Anyway, this little mine horse, it blew him clear out and down into a creek, and this creek was so deep, the banks of the snow, that he couldn't get out, and his legs were froze just hard, and we had to kill him there. And we started out with these bodies on sleighs to pull them out, and the county had a cat come from the end of the road that they had broke up Grays River to feed elk. Plowed the road open up there and met us, and we loaded the bodies on this truck that they pulled behind the cat, and got them out that night about 3 o'clock that night.
Mrs. Baker down to there.
And this
West Virginia.
Mrs. Baker, she was from back West Virginia, and she came down to our place and stayed for quite a while. And we used to keep in contact with her quite a bit, but after my folks passed away, and we haven't heard from her. I guess maybe she has passed away by now. So that was one experience.
You could name the names of all five his brothers. Then you took him on down to Scipio in the back of a pickup, and how you lost him out and you didn't make a curve.
Well,
Don't laugh, that's interesting.
I've
You
been
know.
surprising.
Oh, it really was.
You were living in Vail at this time?
We were living over at Star Valley at that time, but we'd worked up to the Vail Mine all summer. And that summer before Clara cooked, and I worked in the mine and around the mine and hauled bug dust and trucked sand up there to put scales in one thing or another during the summer.
How did you find out about the mine disaster? To get in there?
Well, this Mrs. Baker, she walked down, there's a little ranch down there in the bottom of the canyon, and
They stayed there all
these
week.
people stayed there most all the time. They were trappers. What was her name, Claire? Young, Sam Young,
Yeah.
his family, and this Mrs. Vail walked down there and reported to them, and they telephoned out. There's an old telephone line that was kept up at that time by the Forest Service, and they telephoned out to what had happened. At that time, they didn't know for sure if they were all dead or not. Mrs. Baker, she never even stopped to see, what actually had happened. Only to this year, one boy that she got in the cabin. She didn't know anything about the rest of them, what even happened to them. She hadn't even seen her husband or anything then.
What's his name?
John Baker.
No, but the kids were blown out.
Oh, Bill Baker was her son, and Drew and I, and this little guy.
Shorty Trail.
No, Shorty, they called him Shorty, that worked for Drew and I, and them the two that were found dead in the mine.
I thought it was West Virginia.
Yeah, and he was, I can't think his name was.
Where is the Vail Mine where you live?
You know where Grays River is?
Yeah.
It's go up the Grays River, and that's where it is. There was two mines up there. There was the Vail Mine, the Blind Bull Mine, and the Dead Man Mine, they called it. And we worked to the Dead Man Mine. The Blind Bull, they were just barely over a ridge from each other in different canyons, kind of right up in the head of the canyon. Real steep.
That's the first time anyone had ever stayed there for the winter, wasn't it?
These guys were going to stay in there all winter and get a lot of work done in the mine, so they could really put out a lot of coal in the spring.
There was a lot of
Get a lot of it blasted loose, and they was going to get a lot of mine propping done in there, And,
a lot of miners and daggers used to come
there
over
was,
to Denver to mine.
let's see, 6 of them stayed in there. There was John and Dale, his boy, and Ruin, and this little Shorty.
And you got to get asphalt, asphalt.
5 of them.
I can see the kid.
He's a real good,
Looking kid, dark
young,
haired kid.
good, big built, husky guy. They were all from back Virginia, but,
Just to take a cheap tobacco.
but,
Snooze. It's like mad.
ruin.
We were supposed to send all the rest back to West Virginia and get you now took Ruben to Scipio in the back of the pickup.
Yeah, and we
You know, when you stop thinking about that, that's kind of let him park him across the line like that.
never even
You
asked
just
anybody
wrapped,
about it.
just wrapped him up in the canvas.
Had him in a casket.
Did you?
Yep.
I thought you wrapped him up in
No,
canvas.
had him in a casket.
Just
We
as
got
you
down
put
there
on
by
Scipio,
Salt Lake,
Utah.
Salt Lake somewhere, and
And I was going to sleep.
it just blizzarded and snowed all the way. You couldn't see nothing. And that damn old pickup, you know, one of
Don't
them
pick
old
up about it.
early days here. Got down there and all it went off in the road. The aisle went and down through the bar pit. That thing jumping about this high, I thought the casket was going to jump right out of the bag. Down the bar pit away, up on the road. We got down there, we left here that night, we got down there just as breaking daylight, bright daylight the next morning. And worst thing, the snowstorm, the blizzard did us all over.
Was mine still up?
No, they,
That'll be it.
that ended, that mine never operated. And that Blind Bowl mine only operated the next year, a little bit, I believe. I'm not sure about that, no. I believe it did that next year.
They're so scared, there's no gas in the gas.
Well, I'll tell you what this year mine inspector said. He said that when a mine sits there all winter and that dust and that accumulates, you know, around on the walls and that, he says it's real explosive. And he's the one that investigated and said that this shot they put in there, instead of it going off and blasting the coal down, it sucked back out of the hole, see, and that set it on fire. He said that's absolutely what set it on fire. He said if that shot would have went off, you know, like it should have done, instead of sucking out of the hole, why, it would never happen. But he says that gas is so explosive that, well, he said just about like setting a match to a can of gasoline. That's what he said.
Well, Swede's dad invested in that coal mine. Didn't he?
Yeah,
He invested money
there was
in
a
that
lot
coal
of them
mine.
over there.
One.
Carl invested.
Yeah.
Carl,
Yeah,
several of them invested money. Old, what was the old guy from Idaho Falls?
Vail.
No, that invested in it.
Oh, how? Vail founded the coal mine. That's
Yeah.
how come it was founded. It was called Vail.
Vail.
They're the ones that had us come up and,
They found the coal mine in the first place. They'd operated
another
it
couple. We just,
kind of half-assed operated. They never did have capital enough to open it up decent, and they got quite a bunch of guys to put a little money in it and opened it up. But coal was so damn cheap then, and hauling it a long ways, the expenses was just almost more than what.
how many miners did they have worked? Did they have a lot?
That's
Remember,
what I'm
I kept, it seems to me like Llewellyn and I cooked for
In
around
fact,
33 times a day.
Two of them miners, one shot the other and up there at that moment.
Yeah, tell that story. That's ridiculous.
And I still got a belt at that guy that they put in
The penitentiary.
at Rollins for life. He died there, in fact. I got a belt over home that he made. Yeah.
What happened?
Oh, they just got drunk and this one shot. And then he went right in and laid down and went to sleep on the bed. And sheriff, he went up there and he got this Rex Young to go up with him. You know, they figured that, boy, there's going to have a bad time to get to him. And they went up there and they snuck around and couldn't see him. nowhere, finding nowhere. Went to the cabin there, they said he was asleep on the bed.
They were there with everybody else when it happened.
But
Everybody was there when it happened.
no.
They were just the only two, huh?
There was some more guys around there at the time, but it was after. Was it after we went out or the next spring when they started up there? No,
They
it was
started up the next spring, that's the international fall.
shot.
So somebody must have run down to get the sheriff after he heard the shots, or...
I don't remember now how the devil they found this out for sure.
Dan Sticky was his name.
But it wasn't Dan Seekage, was the guy that brought all the stuff, equipment over from Kimmer. Dan Seekage. Yeah, little Dan.
Well, what did he go to penitentiary for? Some food we seen.
He never went.
Well, he wrote me a letter once.
Dan
After we moved there, was a little old man.
Seekage and Dan. What the hell is this little guy's name that shot Tail? I can't think their names anymore. It's been so long since.
Oh, I can't think of the names, but I didn't know them so well.
Well, I knew all them guys pretty well. Messed down there with them and working so well. Old Dan's cousin, you remember, worked there, the big red-headed guy.
Which one was Dan?
Dan was a little short guy, and he was from over to Kimmer, and he had a lot of equipment. He'd run a mine over there, you know, and it went played out, and he had all this equipment. So he brought it over there and put it in that mine, invested in there, you know.
I imagine he had quite a lot.
Damn right he did. He had more in there than anybody. Hell, he put a lot of stuff in the equipment. And he was really a hard little worker and hard goer. He would have made it paid out if didn't have a chance to call, I bet you. Gosh, I can't think of them guys' names anymore.
When did the shooting happen? Right at the first there, when they first opened it up?
Yeah, it was in the summer when this happened, when they shot him. That's what I was trying to figure out, Clara. We never left there till fall. It happened that next year, because Dan Seekage went back up there the next year and run that damn thing, Clara. I know now, that's how it was.
Oh, they run that winter.
No, Dan went up the next year and opened that thing up, and that's when this year, Dan Elsevich, that's his name.
Yeah, that's his name.
Dan Elsevich, he shot this other guy, and it was the next spring after this year calamity had happened.
Well, that mine had a bad damn time of it, didn't
You
it?
bet it really did. See, it was already called the Dead Man Mine because a guy shot another guy up there, and that's how they called it Dead Man Mountain. There was a early timer from over in Star Valley, two guys there. They were brothers. Now, what's their names?
I never heard of it.
Well, yes, you have heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's Charles Hatterley's wife's dad. What was their names? Anybody you can't think of, you don't think of people's names. No, Sivit's married one of the girls.
What little funny guy? Lives around the corner.
Well, what's her name that used to work in the hospital? Met at Broadbent.
Yeah, Broadbent.
These two brothers, they were trapping, and up on the grazer. Well, some curs come along and stole their horses, all but one. Had an old mare that he didn't get. And so this brother of one of the brothers, it wasn't the one that lived there for a long time, but Broadbent's brother. I can't think of Broadbent's name. He had the whole family and raised him there in Star Valley, but his brother didn't stay there all the time. He left after this had happened. But anyway, he got on this horse and took after him, and he caught him up on Dead Man. The first thing this guy, I guess, saw him coming or something, he took shot at him. Well, he just rolls off and gets behind a big rock, and he sticks his hat up on the stick, and this guy took a shot at him and just let him fall down like that and started shot. It's pretty clever. Well, this guy, he waited a second or two, I guess, and he gets right out in sight, and old Broadbent pulls down and kills him. So
That's how it got named.
that's how the Dead Man got its name. So they called it the Dead Man Mine, but yet it was Vail that found the mine, actually, but it's called Dead Man.
Well, when did this first one take place? Broadbent killed
This Broadbent killing. Well, it would be back in 18-something, because it was when they first started settling Star Valley. You know, they was in their trap, and they were trapping on the Grace River. I don't know exactly, but I imagine it'd be somewhere in the 1880, 85, somewhere along in that category. Because I remember the one old Broadbent that raised the family there, gosh, for years I remember him. So it'd have to been somewhere around 80 or 85 along in there, I would imagine.
Well, anyway, what you up to? Oh, a little mild, huh?
Where did your father first go and start out with?
I don't know exactly what year it would be, and for sure, but he was just a young kid. My granddad, they used to live here at Richmond, you know, and they used to take their cattle up there in the summer, and it was when...
Drive it all the way from here?
Yeah, they used to drive them up there, and that was before there was even road down Tin Cup. They used to just trail them over
You
and
ever hear
down.
the story
But
about
they
the
go
Dead
around
Man
the
Mine?
Jack Knife?
The Dead Stone.
And they'd go
About
up,
the Vail Coal
clear
Mine.
up
He was a year
through
and a half
Soda
old. He
Springs
told
and
me
over and down Tin Cup. You've been
Yeah,
there.
he's telling the story.
They'd trail them all the way up there.
Yeah.
And then they'd keep them there all summer, and my dad was just a kid, and he was the oldest one in the family, and he used to stay up there and herd them. And Clara's dad, or his dad, her granddad, they had this place down there that her brother still got. They lived there then. They'd moved in there. Dad said it was them, and I don't know. There wasn't hardly any ranches, and they wasn't even fenced even.
My grandmother, they said, used to trade butter, make butter on hand all the time to trade, give it to the Indians to keep it. When they'd come through, so they would sell it. They never bothered them. They'd just come in, she'd get butter all the time.
They used to run them cattle all over there. There wasn't anybody actually even fenced or ranching or anything. And another outfit from down here, Barber's, he was in implement business, and they used to take cattle for implements and that all over the country down here. I guess there was about 3 brothers of them.
The trade.
And they'd trade, they'd take a whole damn herd of cattle up in the summer. And gradually people started in piling on the ground, and they started fencing it. So after this all took place, everybody started getting places, took out the fence. Well, then my dad bought a place up there. Granddad told him to buy one place up there if he could buy it. He said he bought it for $1,200, and that's where one of my uncles lived. That's where my granddad lived all his life there. But one of my uncles has got it now.
That's over on Tin Cup?
Just big old Tin Cup on the north side of Tin Cup. Then they just kept buying land there, one place after another. My granddad did until they owned the land from over there where they bought the first place, everything clear across the river over to Highway by Etna. At one time, a lot of land and places right through there.
So your grandfather, did he ever really move over there?
Yeah, he moved over.
The whole family moved right out.
They all moved over.
From Richmond here.
Yeah.
The Christian people lived here, I guess.
They tore the old house down, I guess. It's Christians and lived up above town up the hill there. Raymond told me a dozen times what his name is. This kid got killed on a tractor up there. His boy married a girl from over in our valley. tractor. A year or so after they were married. And I remember those kids went on their honeymoon with a team of mules and a camp wagon come clear over through the valley there. I didn't get to see them, but I heard them tell me about it.
My mother knew that guy too. The guy that boy got killed.
Is that right? I don't know them.
I think that's what they did.
Your dad comes to Christmas Day. I believe my dad said when he was 14, he stayed over there one winter with a couple guys that were one of these barbers, and before he was married, that used to run the cattle over there. And another old timer that was in there for all his life, he died at 93, I remember that, Bishop Lowe called him. And there was an old cabin down there on the river, just about 2 miles from where we live now. And Dad said he stayed there one winter with them 2 guys in that damn cabin, stayed there all winter. That was the first winter he ever stayed in there.
Kept some cattle there?
Well, them guys had a few. No, they never did keep any cattle there because they never raised any hay in there at all. And they just summered them and brought them back out. And for winter, they'd sail them out of there and back down to Utah.
They just stayed in there then for a lifetime, wouldn't they?
He just stayed in there. These guys stayed there. They had a few heavy stuff. And they were starting to settle there, trying to get some ground. And so he decided he'd stay there. Kind of bummed around. There's these 2 guys during summertime herding cattle and that all summer. So I guess they'd talked to him and stay. He was just a kid. He was younger than they were. They were probably in their 20s then. And this old Bishop Lowe, he's quite a character. He was a hell of a good guy. He was a pretty good church member too, you know. He was a bishop and one thing and another all over there, but yet he was a pretty rough old guy, you know. What I mean, he was a wrestling, fighting old son of a gun. He had a lot in doing tougher than a boiled owl. He used to be just about out to do most any of them sports, and that they said it really took a good one out to him. And he told me when he got about, he was 85 years old, and he was still out hunting one time. He was out hunting on the road. He was up there hunting those buggers. He said, you know, that I planned on going to Canada to a big cattle ranch. He said I had that in mind. He said I was all ready to go. I sold my place and everything. And he said when I was all ready to leave, they sent word that they wanted me to be the bishop there in Athens. He said that was a hard thing to make up my mind to stay there after I'd sold everything, but he said I decided to stay, so he said I never did get to Canada to get that cattle ranch.
You ever get another place there?
Yeah, he actually bought another place. Yeah, he raised a family there. And Bishop, I remember he died at 93 years old, not too many years ago. Now when he was 80 years old, he showed one of his grandsons that was 20 years old.
Well, your family's been there pretty all right.
Yeah, they were like that. So there was a few that moved in there, you know, a few of the older timers first, but it was like that. And persons that moved in there had some pretty tough jobs until a few years, you know, they'd run out of hay and they'd go down on the banks of the Salt River and shovel the snow off and that old tall grass, you know, left them on the bank, they'd shovel it off into the river street, so it's that it's easy. And then I heard about that tell about in April, when the crust was March and April was crust, those east mountains, those ridges would be bare, and they'd take what stock they had on the crust and take them up there on those bare ridges to save them. Well, you know, there was a lot of feed in those days because there wasn't any cattle there to eat it off, and it was just that old grass. I've heard my dad tell about that grass on that east side, over around Essen, on the other side of the valley from where we lived. Said it was all sagebrush, it's all sagebrush all over. So he said that grass was in there so thick it's all you could see. Nowadays, wild game, cattle that run out on the range, and that keeps the grass pretty well eat off in the summertime, but there was a lot of that grass that really used to grow up high and it just snowed under, you know, but a lot of those ridges would pretty well stay bare most all winter over there. The snow don't get too deep on a lot of where the deer in that winter, there's quite a lot of grass on it. That mine disaster must have been in 1936, or 35. 36.
Well, when you're a year and a half old.
What year was she born?
What year was you born in, Roselena? Think of that. 34.
No, in 34. She was born in 34. No, we was married in 34. She was
34, Royce, and then 36.
in 36.
We've got 36 young.
Do you have Roselena out there with you?
No.
No, we left her with Clara's aunt, and this odd party, his brother got killed, and he married Clara's aunt. They kept Rosa. And that little snot when come home, she didn't want nothing to do.
Said she wanted to teach us with Daddy.
She wasn't
He teaches with Daddy.
We just simply have to take her by force, and for
In 3 months' time.
a couple of days or so, you know, she just wouldn't hardly have anything to do with it. Well,
They didn't have any kids. They didn't have none for it. Baker, she made bacon powder biscuits for every meal. 3 times a day she made bacon powder biscuits. Where they do our bacon powder.
Yeah, so.
In fact, they didn't even
Clara,
know yeast.
Bill Baker and this here other guy that got killed, his name was Bill too, wasn't it?
I just about have it on the end of my
Like
tongue.
just where I
And then
put
we-
his thumb.
I think all those other guys' names. That shoemake kid, that's the name of him.
What was his first name? I can't even remember what
His name was last name was Shoemake.
They were all from back there,
Yeah.
weren't they? John Baker and his wife, Bill Baker,
Oh, good.
and that little shorty,
laying on the bed with his leg hanging off, just from twisted off, and dead as man.
I don't know how many beds are in there.
Well, I guess he probably had a little power of his own to help get in there. But I guess he was hurt inwardly, I would imagine.
No one can debate
He's in the cookhouse again.
She heard the explosion. I guess she went out.
That'd be terrible thing to get there,
Seen
Lord,
that
wouldn't it?
damn
And that
smoke
far away and all
flying.
that snow.
Flying
Oh.
all over, and she went up there,
Have you seen him?
and that was what she found. You go up, kind of the road goes up like this, and then start building a great big tipple on the face of the hill there. That year, all summer, we was working on that tipple, a great big old log tipple where they can run all the coal down into different things up in it. And then the mine was way up above that. Hell, it would be 200 feet or so up
He had
there.
quite a walk.
Up there to it. And I guess it looked just like, as near as they could tell, this John Baker and his son and this here Bill Ashley. They must have come out of the mine with this little mine horse and brought the cars out. And they must have been sitting there waiting for these other guys at the mouth of the tunnel when this went off, because it blew all them right out through the air, mine horse and all, right out through the air and clear down into the bottom. They came in like that.
But the horse survived, so he came along and killed him.
Yeah, he was still alive when we got up. He was right, the damn snow was so deep, and he was right down in this creek, you know, and he couldn't get out of there. I guess it was so deep down in there. It's kind of boggy in there. And this snow was so deep, piled up. I guess that's probably all that saved this, what's his name?
Actually.
Lightning that damn deeply snow, you know, and just flying. Probably, maybe if this John Baker, maybe if he lit out there somewhere, you can't tell them what it's been saved, one of them or the other, but they hit in that damn tipple and it's just building there, shooting there, logs and poles. And that's it, just felt this John Baker, just like he took him off, just right off. We just worked that summer, and it was that fall that they was really gonna hit her the next spring, full blast. And that's the reason you guys stayed in there. So did a lot of work, and we've got a lot of mine crops and wedges and stuff out like that during the summer, and they were popping it up, you know, back through the tunnels so that it couldn't cave in anything. Opening up some new rooms along the tunnels. They'd open the rooms up on the sides, and that's what they were doing, getting a lot of coal loose for in springtime. They would get a lot of coal out. Because the year before, it had been damn slow going, and never got as much coal out as what they wanted to get out of what they could sell. They could have sold a lot more than they were thinking it out. And they got the scales, just got the scales in so they could start using them. They had been just more or less guessing at the damn coal measurements, you know. And that. That's much gas from this thing. This is on? Oh, it's no need of it just running.